Hey there, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. This week on the show, Matt Reiner is back for a rousing conversation about the very concept that this podcast is based on. The fact that a financial advisor is a very modern profession. That concept is more than just a fun podcast topic, by the way. It's really tangible when you think about it. There are financial advisors today who are actively serving clients who are the first generation of people ever to hold the professional title financial advisor. That means that we're still in the first inning of this industry, and there is a ton of growth and opportunities for innovation still waiting for us. Okay, one quick note, by the way. Matt and I actually recorded this episode several months ago, so it's possible that a few things have changed, like references to how hot it is outside or something weird like that. But as a general rule, nothing material has changed. This is really an evergreen episode. You are still a modern financial advisor. That hasn't changed in the last few months, all right? Okay, now, before we get rolling, please do make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, so wherever you like to get your podcast jam on. And if you have a question or a suggestion for a guest or a topic for the show, hit me up. I'm basically at Mike Langford anywhere, or shoot us an email. Podcast@finservmarketing.com is the best way to reach us. All right, let's get to the conversation with Matt Reiner. Matt Reiner, buddy, welcome back to the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. So wonderful to see you.
And Mike, great to be back. I don't know what's going on, why you're inviting me so much, but I'm honored to be back on the podcast with you. I always love these conversations, man.
Well, I think what's happening here is there's a lifelong podcasting bromance that has really brewed to the surface where we just like being on microphones with giant dorky headphones in our heads, chatting with each other, 1,000 miles away.
So
So here we go.
you're not the same guy. You don't wear these around the house, when you're not podcasting like I do. I tend to just wear it around. I pack the cord in my pocket, and I love them. They're just part of who I am.
Well, what's really funny about that, we were having a conversation before we clicked the record button about, like, my kids are older than yours. My first is about to go off to college, and my youngest is starting high school next week. So, but yours are little, right? And so you're probably wearing yours just for self-defense. Like, daddy's got headphones on. Don't bother him. He's walking around. I wear my dorky ones when I'm doing things around the house and I'm just trying to hear it. You know what I mean? I've got my the Apple AirPods Max, which they're awesome. But anyway, they do change your dynamic, though. When you're walking, you can now start to feel your footsteps, which you wear regular AirPods, you don't feel anything.
So
But all of a
you
sudden, you're
like
like,
the
you
bigger
walk.
ones better? Do you like
Oh,
the pros or the big
oh,
ones so
they
much?
will change how you consume media. Like if you watch a movie, like I'm a sci-fi nerd, like I think that's well
Yeah, yeah.
documented. So on Apple Plus, there's a show called Foundation, which is just it's an uh, Isaac, what was his name? Isaac Asimov show, books that they made a show, and they're each episode is like a flipping movie, right? But the surround sound in these things, it's just nuts. It transforms watching a movie or whatever. So if I've got the TV, the big TV all to myself, I'm firing those bad boys up.
That is incredible. Well, so see, I'm not. My kids are still too young. Where if I wear them around the house, then it becomes a toy for them to play with, and then I've got to talk
Yeah,
to them about that. So, I don't wear them as much, but when they're, I sometimes wear 'em around the office just to keep them, they're
yeah.
comfortable around the ears, right?
There you go. Bless you. Look great. People, my friend teased me, calling. She was saying these are my Princess Leia headphones. I look like at them. So whatever. What you gotta do.
Well, I'm honored to be back, man. This is it's a great friendship that we've been able to create all over podcasting, which is it's just remarkable, man. I'm super appreciative of you.
100%. And same for you as well. And I love you having the show. And it's funny. We should just always click record. Like as soon as you come on, hey, great to see you. Click the record button and just like we'll have somebody the editors work that into whatever podcast we do because we always have some great conversations. We're like, shit, I should be recording.
We just talked all about SEC in college and LSU and Georgia and all of that for,
That's right. Yeah,
20 minutes. It was great content.
that's exactly right. So yeah, go Tigers. All right, let's do it.
Yokes, it's Goat
All right.
Tigers with that X.
Go Tigers. Exactly right. It's so funny. Oh my God. All right. So listen, we're gonna be talking about well, a bunch of modern stuff. It is the Modern Financial Advisor podcast, but in our prep call, we started talking about like, man, it is really modern, this whole notion of financial advisory businesses. And it's funny, it's I've been thinking about this a lot lately about how freakishly new just about everything in the world is lately. Like, even events like and inventions that happened before I was born, they're like super recent in like human history. And it really hit me like not too long ago. Jackson and I, my oldest, who's going to LSU, uh, we were at a Spurs game because the Celtics were in town. So we go down to the Spurs game and I see that they're celebrating their 50th anniversary. I'm like, the hell? I'm older than the Spurs? How is this possible that I'm older than an NBA team? That doesn't make any sense. And of course, I think the Nuggets just celebrated their 46th anniversary and won the championship. So by the way, I'm 51 for those who are wondering. So I'm not like crazy old. I'm just barely Spurs.
You're young. You're a young buck in the world these days. You're a young buck.
That's right. Listen,
Lots of
you know
life
what
left to
happens?
go.
What do they say? Ball doesn't crack. That's what helps. Makes me look younger. Anyway,
If you're
we
not
were
watching on video, you would see Mike doesn't look a day over 35. He looks younger than I do, and I'm
You know
not
what's really funny?
35. I'm not 35 though.
Yeah, you're not 35 yet?
Not yet.
Oh
No,
my
I'm
god,
old.
you
I'm
look
older than
yeah,
35.
so I had to think I was watching, I saw a preview for, a show, with, what's his name there? Seth Rogen on it, and they were talking about they were doing an interview about the show, and then he says he's 40. I'm like, "He's only 40?" I'm like and then, of course, my friends are my family is kind of, disagree with me. I'm like, "I think he looks older than I look." Like, I'm not saying I look younger than 40. I'm saying he looks way worse than 40. I'm not so and there was a debate.
You're
Like,
misinterpreting
"Is
what
Seth
I'm
Rogen?"
saying.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say that I look like I'm 40. I'm trying to say he looks terrible for 40. That's a different it's a different thing. Anyway, dude, what makes it even worse, so I was telling you, my wife and I went to, see Oppenheimer on our 27th anniversary because 'cause I'm a romantic. We go to see, history no, it was 'cause we're movie buffs and we wanted something to do. Um, but it dawned on me, like, while we're watching it was our 27th anniversary, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, the Trinity test is 1945, which is only 27 years before I was born." So it's really starting to just, like, blow my mind. Like, first of all, I know some of you were saying Mike is wicked old. True, I am old. But, like, this is, like everything seems to be newer than you think it is, and it's especially true for the financial advisory business, right? As a concept, it is a very new thing. When 1940 was when the Investment Advisor Act was passed, right? And right, the father of modern portfolio theory, the guy who invented modern portfolio theory, just passed away not too long ago. So this is a new business, right? I mean, like, so everything we talk about is modern, even though we're trying to help people
And I
modernize
think
it.
that there's also this concept that it just we're very bad at understanding time, right? We everything seems like yesterday in the past, and then everything in the future seems like it's like never going to happen, right? We were talking about my kids going to college, and it's like my kids are 4 and 2. It seems like it's like so far, there's so much left to go there, but it's gonna, like, before I know it, it's gonna happen, and it's gonna be so quick. So this concept of time, as even as we get older, like, you think about with young kids, they have no concept of time. 1 minute seems like 3 hours to them, right? But I think there's like this concept of time just because if you're in it for so long that it feels like it's been around forever. And the reality is when you take a step back, like you think about ETFs and all that's on that side and robo advisors, it just becomes the norm that it feels like it's been there forever. And you think about the iPhone. I mean, the iPhone's only been around since 2007, but it seems like what was life like before that? But it wasn't that long ago. It's only been around for a little bit of time. So concept of time is really difficult for us of understanding progress and also change from that standpoint.
Yeah. What's his name? Bill Gates has that famous quote, which I've used a bunch of times, whether it's presentations or on podcasts. He's famous for saying that people greatly overestimate the amount of change that will happen in 2 years, but greatly underestimate how much the world will change in 10 years. And it's so true. Think about 2013, just life in general. Like, first of all, you weren't seeing electric cars as an example, right? I can remember like that was really the early days of the financial advisors starting to bring their own device to work days,
Yep.
right? It wasn't that long ago. When I was working for a company called Socialware, and I was out there basically evangelizing the concept of social media for financial advisors, and I was going to the big advisor conferences, the Morgan Stanleys, the Cambridge Investments, and all the like, right? I would look out and you'd see laptops and you'd see Blackberries, right? And they were all the corporate owned devices. And then within a year, you started to see iPad, an iPhone. And because what was happening, they wanted to use the devices that they were starting to use in home. They didn't want to have to balance a BlackBerry into this and that. And to your point, like, man, like things happen really quick and life changes accordingly.
I had a conversation with someone actually about this today, and I'm reading the book by I'm looking at who it is, by Hal Hershfield, the Your Future Self. I don't know if you've read that book, but it's super
No.
interesting. And it's this concept that we have this inability to under we make decisions with our present self in mind, and we think that our future self is going to be like the same because we have an inability to think of how we are going to change by our
Mm,
future self. So for instance, like he talks about how he liked the band Guster, and like he was like,
okay.
I'm going to love this band forever. Like there's always going to be a time that I'm going to love this band. And then they come to LA, and he was like, I'm just going to go for old school sake, like go and buy a ticket. But it was like $40. He's like, I'm not buying a ticket for $40 to go see
Yeah.
Guster. But when he was, 15 years old, like he would do anything in his world to go buy that ticket and spend as much money. And so your likes and your abilities, and at 15, there was no world in his mind where he didn't like Guster because all he knew was at that point in time. And we all think that like there is no way the financial world's going to change, right? We're always going to be using ETFs. We're always going to be using Schwab and Fidelity. We're always going to be using a CRM like Salesforce. Like that's just the way it is. So we're just going to build our 10-year vision, understanding that because anything outside of that is so hard for us to comprehend that it's not even going to be done. Like the world's going to be the same. Some things are just the way they are and they're never going to change, and that's where people get past when you think like that. You have to have a slightly different outside the box mindset, but it's hard because unless you're aware of those tendencies and
Yeah.
those biases, you're going to be stuck into those traps.
Is that the old saying that, there are people who make things happen, there are things who react to things that happen, and then the people who go, "What happened?" And we don't want like the advisors to be like the ones who, "What happened?" Right? Because it's really easy in any business to just kind of get, I always jokingly say fat, dumb, and happy. Like you're comfortable, right? Like, oh, this is great. Like life's great. I get recurring revenue. Da, da, da. Like, but you quickly life can change, right? And that doesn't mean the fundamentals change, right? So the fundamentals of sound financial advice and financial management, they remain the same. They're rock solid, right? Spend less than you make, invest for the future with consideration to the risks and the expected rewards or financial goals you have. Leverage insurance to guard against catastrophic risks. That stuff's fundamental. It's bedrock in it, right? So I don't think that's going to change. But the application of financial advice and management continues to change, right? Financial consumers are dramatically living dramatically different lives than they did just a few years ago, and frankly, definitely different than generations ago. I mean, I'm thinking about things like we were talking already about how connected we are, right? The fact that you and I are 1,000 miles apart and we're recording a podcast is pretty flippin' amazing. That only a few short years ago, advisors were never dreamed of video chatting with their clients, and now it's like a regular thing that they do. But heck, like when you think about like financial consumers, their worlds change a lot too. Like we live in a subscription based economy now, and think about all the subscriptions you have. That's inflation in your life, right? Not only do houses cost more, college costs more in proportion to the income needed to buy those things, but it's like everything you're doing. Think about like, Netflix didn't exist.
Yeah.
I still have to pay for internet, right? In order to access Netflix and Disney Plus and Hulu and all those types of things. So you've had like your basket of goods inflation happen to your cost. But then one of the things that I see coming, and it'd be interesting to get your take on this, is the rise of the 1099 economy. A
Mhm.
couple of years ago, NPR published this big study that said close to 50% of Americans are under 1099 now around this time period, and it's going to keep rising, right? That employers are moving off W-2 relationships because it's just a better relationship for them. So think about our business as financial advisory businesses. It's built on the defined contribution plan. It is
Mhm.
built on like employees having a 401k or 403b. They're depositing into it directly, right, automatically. And then at some point in time, they do a rollover and they're having their assets managed by you, financial advisor. What happens when that type of stuff goes away? So we have a lot of changes happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just the caveat on that for a second. I think it's super interesting point of it comes down to the simple idea of really two things that you were alluding to. One is like Moore's law, which is the exponentiality of change, right? Things get changed quicker and faster because you're building on top of each incremental change. So it's quicker to build technology now that we have the resources that we do that were different than 15 years ago. So Moore's law just incrementally changes. So it happens faster, but it also gets back to the core of what you were saying. Like the what doesn't change. It's the periphery, which is the how, right? The what that we need to earn an income. How we earn an income could change, right? 1099 versus W2. The what of saving for retirement is still core, but the how, right? Now you can have, round up, you can have 401k, you can have all of these hows are different, and I see that that's, like, where the innovation really happens. And I think about this, like, in our own organization of, like, the change happens where you test out how you can do things differently, and some of the things make it into the what of what we are doing, and then some things that don't work get kind of out of there. But the core of it all is still the what, which stays true independent of the innovation. The innovation and the change happens around the periphery of how we do it, right? How we consume media, right? We're still consuming media, but how we do it,
Right.
we don't use bunny ears anymore. We have it on our, we have it streaming with Netflix. We don't have cable. We have multiple different service providers. So, if we think about it that way, I think it becomes less stressful to people. I think when you start looking at all of the hows, is there's a lot of optionality, which I think is great. But the what and the core, if you dig deep into it, is still really the same.
I think that's 100% correct, and it's a great thing for advisors to appreciate, not only for the clients that they're serving, right? Like, hey, your clients are still gonna have these fundamentals here. They are, as you point out, consuming media. They're still gonna have kids, and they're gonna still want to give those kids a good lives and educate those kids and all that type of stuff. But some of the hows that happens is going to change, but your business is going to change a little bit as well, right? Like the way that you do business, it's so funny to think about how rapidly, even though it sounds ridiculous, the financial advisory business changed. And I think about it through like uh, communications mechanisms. We already talked about video, but it was a little over a decade ago before financial advisors, they weren't even on social media, and they would question the value of social media. Like, I gotta be on Facebook. My clients aren't on Facebook. LinkedIn. What if I go on LinkedIn and somebody steals all my clients? It was all this paranoia stuff. And then you go back a little further, organizations were like resisting allowing financial advisors to have email because they were like, well, email, we can't possibly like read every single email for our clients and for our advisors. And they were paranoid, right? And now you wouldn't dream of having these types of things. And I'm old enough to remember the first like electronic trading stuff, like when Fidelity Investments started rolling out Active Trader Pro and allowing people to trade online. It's crazy, right? Like, but the world continued. So you're going to be adopting some new tech and new processes in your business.
That the point that if you keep an open mind and you're open minded to saying that, I know that the one thing that I do know is that the future will be different than the present. And if you open your mind to allowing the expectation to be that, as opposed to assuming that it's all going to stay the same, then your frustration level will be minimized into the future. And so if someone is still stuck in the ways of saying that all of this change is bad, I think that is an uphill battle that's going to be leave you at the bottom of the hill while the hill continues to grow and people move up that hill further, farther, and or further, faster. And the reason I say that is that not all this change, not every change is good. There's probably people like, Matt, well, all this stuff is like, you're always connected. Like, that's not good. Remember back in the past when it wasn't? I agree. Like, there's a con to every pro with evolution, but the access to information, the access to advice, the ability now to serve more people, the ability for us to give more value, the
Mhm.
new lessons that we now know about how the psychology of individuals work so that we can frame advice to help people not just lean on data but overcome psychological barriers and use data plus tech plus humans to do all that. that has drastically improved the lives of people and individuals. And you look about wage income, retirement savings, even though it's still dismal, it's better than it has been in the past.
Yeah.
And so I think that the opportunity is there, but we have to have an open mindedness to say that this future will likely be different and be okay with that and say, well, how do we then still get to our goal, whatever it may be for you and your firm or yourself from that standpoint?
Yeah, 100%. I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I think there's always a resistance to change and to the embracement of new technologies, unless it's one of those things that's just so much more awesome than what you're using, right? Like even early days of like phone usage, you hear the stories of like old guys like talking about like, yeah, they didn't want to make phone calls to talk to clients, and it's like, no, dude, this is gonna I'm gonna be able to do way more business here. But when you look at like a new tech, sometimes it can just give you a little bit of an anxiety because there's a learning curve to it, right? Uh, but one of the other things that I've noticed is like some of the slow pace of technology adoption is, we obviously have the compliance and the regulatory constraint that kind of puts a little bit of brakes, and we want to make sure this is safe for the firm and for the financial consumer. That's always there. But there's also that comfort level, right? I've built a good business. It's working. I've got recurring revenue. Don't rock the boat, right? I'm playing lots of golf. I don't have time to add some new things. Um, I'm thinking back about, you know, uh, you and your Benjamin experience, right?
Mhm.
So, by the way, pour one off of Benjamin.
He's
I just
retired and
can't.
happy on the beach. He's retired
He's
and happy on the
retired,
beach.
exactly. And I know a lot of our audience remembers. They definitely remember you fondly from times on the shows when we talked about Benjamin and the promise of that. Uh, what were some of the key hurdles that you and your team saw when you looked at technology adoption? Because you were at the forefront of it, right? You're out there talking to advisors and firms about, hey, bringing on new technology, moving forward, being to the point. Some of the things you're talking about, like serving more clients more efficiently, serving clients who have less means, whatever. Uh, what did you see with these hurdles here, and how did you help advisors get over it?
Yeah, it's an I think that there's a challenge with, like you said, change and newness, right? When you don't have a
Yeah,
comparative that you can, touch and feel and have tangible aspects to, it's hard to understand what the future holds. And I think that that's what we
yeah,
saw. That was a battle that we faced within our technology solution and the selling of it, is because a lot of what we were doing, because we were a business support system, so we were workflow automation, basically bringing together data from multiple technologies to execute on menial mundane tasks that we forget that we do all the time, and a lot of the work was all in the background. So how do you visualize all the work in the background? And if you think about all the technology that we use and know, there's always this like user interface or UI that's sexy, that shows everything, that you can see everything, but all of our work was being done in the background and was taking the workload off of things that we forget that we do all the time. So
yeah,
we had to figure out how to tell that story. And the best way to do that was to create some relational, tangible aspects, right? So
mhm,
thinking about bill pay was one of the ways that we did it. So how do you pay bills and how that evolved and where we fit in and how we're doing that. And so that you can have this like cross reference from the brain. But I think that the biggest challenge is I've always stressed that the advisory community is it's a very unique and amazing business, and the people in this business do great work. The reason that I think that innovation is slower in our space, we can always point to compliance and regulation, et cetera, which is one aspect for sure, but it's because there hasn't been a triggering event that has forced people to change. But if I'm an advisor, I can create a great business and a great life for me and my family and my
yeah,
future family by getting $100 million book of business. And I don't have to do anything other than serve them. So I don't have to do anything new other than serve
right,
them. And over the next 10 years, my book business and my revenue, my paycheck will increase over time without
right,
doing anything new. And so it's an incredible business. And until there is this like change impacting the whole industry, then having to take the risk of a new technology that I can't really wrap my head around and I can't compare to something I'm already using, and it's not a product or a feature set comparison, there's no upside to my taking that. There's only downside, and with a loss aversion, risk averse mentality, I'm not going to do it. And so I'm going to just stay
mhm,
status quo. And that is always the biggest challenge. And until you can get people to really see it, and you find the subset of individuals that are very forward thinking and innovative and understand it, that's the difficulty. But it has to have some tangibility there and comparativeness. Being a new technology, unless it creates and enhances new revenue, right? Or reduces
Yeah.
one-to-one cost that you can correlate, it becomes really difficult to infiltrate into this space specifically. And I would say any tech, any industry. I don't think that advisors are drastically
Yeah.
different there, but I think that the business model makes it a little bit more challenging.
You know, it's funny. This will not be the last time that we talk about this, something that touches on this topic. But I've long said that there are two great motivators in life, right? Human beings are motivated by two different things, right? Either the urge to get laid or the urge to avoid death, right? And it's on the continuum, right? It's not a, but the extremes are like if I'm selling something, I can show you how you're gonna get laid. Get a promotion, make more money, feel more confident, and you're gonna be able to get the girl, get the guy, whatever that thing is. That's getting laid, right? Like what I'm pitching you is helping you make more money, feel like a rock star or whatever. Or I can pitch you on something like this is going to help you not die, financial advisor, right? Like, so by the way, insurance is helping you not die. It's a sleep at night factor, right? Uh, Moderate and reasonably conservative financial planning is kind of like a not die thing. There can be an element of like, getting laid at some point in time, you're going to be able to retire early. You're going to buy that beach house. You're going to be able to whatever. But as a general rule, right? That's why I'm usually not a huge fan of DIY financial tools, right? These
Mhm.
financial wellness tools. And I see a lot of those investment pitches, right? Of startups pitching those. And like, you're helping people not die. People who are self-motivated to avoid death, well, they already have a spreadsheet or the QuickBooks or something that they're using there, right? But people will, in fact, risk death to get laid all the time. They will do stupid shit. They'll go out to the bar. They'll buy drinks they can't afford. They'll do stuff like that. And I think the same is true for business owners, right? If you could show a financial advisor, like, dude, this is going to help you make a ton more money. I'll tell you why. Like as an example, let's dive into the AI stuff. You know, right now everybody's talking about AI, but they have like memories of like the previous AI stuff that didn't necessarily change or dramatically change their business, right? And so that could help their business, right? We had the robo advisors that scared the crap out of people for a little while. But then they realized, well, I can use this to actually help serve my clients as robo advisory offerings for me as an advisor to help the lower tier clients. Benjamin was helping them kind of take some of the repetitive tasks. We even had Vise, who was helping you like in your portfolio construction, little right. None of this stuff necessarily radically changed their business, right? And dramatically improved the upside, and it was still in its infancy, right, technology wise. But now we have these new tools like the Chat GPTs or whatever, the generative AI
Mhm.
that are poised to be big, right, and to have some transformational things. Now I know you've written a few blog posts and you've done some other talking about, so I'm going to like yield the floor to you. What are you seeing for like these new AI tools and the promise they have for advisors?
Yeah, I mean, I think generative AI has an ability because it has an ability to work across spectrums. It's not just portfolio management, it's not just
Mm,
workflow automation. It has the ability to combine between multiple segments of both this industry and other industries, and it has this interface that can be interacted with and leveraged by from leadership down to interns.
mm,
And they all can use it in different ways and bring those ideas together to then create innovative servicing ways, models, or efficiency models inside of their business. So, for instance, I can go use it in my personal life. I can go use generative AI in my personal life to make myself more efficient, and then I could then relate back to the my professional life and say, well, this is something that's really bad. Like I can use this now together. Whereas I can't use Benjamin in my personal life. Like I would love to, but there's no comparison there, and I can't translate that in that way. And so generative AI just has more of a unanimous appeal to more people in more ways that then allow them to think about it in different frames of mind that then can be applied to their professional life and personal life. That is, I think, the benefit and the power of it. And because of the advancement of it, I think the power of this is that because it is so, I don't know if ubiquitous is the right word, but it's so is able to be used in so many different verticals that you're going
Yeah.
to start to see these ideas that weren't able to really be solved because they were so specific or so difficult because the technology wasn't there, rehash themselves and then be combined with
Yeah.
the new generative AI to create this like amazingly powerful um impact to the way that we do business and the way that we serve clients. And I think that everybody's worried about how, I don't want to talk to a bot. I don't want to get financial advice from a bot. And if you've ever talked to ChatGPT, it's really incredible. It doesn't feel like a bot at all. It feels like my EA that I can go back and forth with and be like, hey, I want to change this up. What do you think about that? Very interactive. But I think that where people get lost, again, going back to our inability as humans, nothing wrong with people or us. It's just who we are, is that we can't see the future. And everybody says, well, this is what I know. This is how I see it. And I don't see that that's going to be the way it is in 10 years. And I think that you're right. But you don't, I think that the way that we're using generative AI today is not the way or the impact that is going to be had on this industry in the future. I think it's going to be something
Great point.
drastically different. I think that today, though, advisors, if they can open up their ability and their assumptions and be more open minded, can find extreme value from generative AI from a content creation standpoint to a communication standpoint to a marketing standpoint, even to allowing and leveraging your junior advisors and your operations team to help answer more specific questions. Like, this is my client has making 500,000. They want to they're contributing to their 401k. Can they contribute to an IRA, a Roth IRA? Can you draft up an email that's very friendly and send it to them? Now you can have other people take that information. Now, I would never put specific client information in there, right?
Right.
Use common sense, but like that example doesn't use any specific client information and allows for me now to have my junior assistant put together an entire email that I can just peruse. And now I have something that takes me 5 minutes, takes me 1 minute. And that 4 minutes is extremely valuable, especially if you're a senior advisor that's managing a big book of business as well. So I think that today there is tangible impact and value from it, from a marketing, from a content creation, and from a communication standpoint, um, and a research standpoint. And I think that, you look at what Bloomberg's doing with their GPT aspect and where it can go. I think that the future, though, is probably gonna look different, but it will leverage this technology and people will get comfortable with it just like they got comfortable with self-driving cars. It was crazy, like, who would ever do that? Who would ever get in a car like that? Now people are doing it all the
Yeah.
time, and, like, in
Sure.
electric cars, it was like, "What the hell are we doing with electric cars?" And now by 2030, like, every car maker is gonna be doing only electric cars. Like, things change,
Yeah.
and I think that there will be an acceptance of this. I do think that there is a huge amount of euphoria around it, which will come down. But I think that that comes down because people just get assume that this is just the way that it is at that point.
It's really interesting. You mentioned something that got me thinking, and it'll lead us into our next topic. But you're right. Like, so you mentioned don't put personally identifiable client information into like a open tool, just like you wouldn't type your client information into Google and like, what do you think about Matt Reiner's house valuation? And here's his taxable income, whatever. You would never put that type of information into a public website setting. Um, However, there are going to be tools, generative AI tools that now will be eventually in closed loop, closed walled garden type tools that you use. So think about your financial planning tools that you use now. Think about the stuff that's on your desktop that you allow access, like your CRM, that you allow access to client data. There will eventually be, and I say eventually, like within the next couple of years, generative AI. And by the way, for those who don't know, we've said generative AI a bunch of times. It is AI that actually generates stuff, right? So it's not just a quick, let me do the calculation. Let's automate some calculations. Where we've talked a lot about in the past, AI and machine learning stuff is it's really just a set of automations. Now it's actually can create things. You can ask some of these tools like ChatGPT or Google's Bard, hey, can you summarize this book? Can you summarize this podcast? If we take this podcast, once we record it, I could tell Bard to go summarize the podcast in 500 or fewer words. And bang, it would do it really quick. It's pretty amazing, right? Um, imagine what you could do with that with your client experience or inside internally in your business, right? There are it's not just tasks, it's like things you love to do that you can't yet do because it's just way too time consuming, or hell, maybe you stink at the task that it would take to do it. That stuff's coming.
Well, Redtail and Orion already have it, right? Redtail can
Mm,
draft you an email and that
yeah.
you can edit. And I think that, that's the best thought of how I believe people should be thinking about generative AI is that it gets you 80% of the way there. If you're not creative and can't think of ideas, it can get you 80% with ideas and give you copy. And then you can
Mhm.
go edit it and make it more human and make it more you. It can provide you with the first 80% rough draft, and then you can do the final 20%. But that's still valuable. Like
For
that
sure
is
it is, yeah.
valuable. The most time consuming part is the research, the drafting. Like think about if you could have on Microsoft, and I assume that this will be there in the next 12 months, if I were to guess, is that all the emails that come in, you just have a simple icon on the above of saying, and I think that it's already there for some aspects, the sentiment of that email. This client is upset. This client is happy. This client,
Yeah.
here's a response that I would send to make them turn them from upset to moderately upset or slightly upset, or to happy. That is powerful, right? That is a way of saying this communication medium that has become so normal that we're now figuring out how to make it more personal and understanding and get more of this. Like I can tell by your facial expressions if something I'm saying is good or stupid or whatever, and it can change my alt. Now we're going to be able to do that with text messaging and email, which are preferred communication mediums, which now can eliminate the need to have phone calls or in-person meetings, which now allows you to serve more people in a more personal way. And so it's not about getting them to be a number and talking to a chatbot. It's a matter of how do you serve more people without losing the service model. I was just listening to this book online or on the way to work this morning, and it was talking about the Patagonia founder, and he was saying, how can we, he always used the analogy of like if I own a restaurant and I'm a 3-star restaurant, if I were to add 30 more tables, what do I need to do to ensure that I don't that I maintain that 3rd star? And that's the same thing. If I added 100 more clients, can I do that and maintain the same service model? And people say, well, no, just human capacity, you can't do that. I think that's BS. I think you can with some of the evolutions and innovations within technology.
Oh, for sure. If you think about like sticking on the email example you were just describing, right? So go through my emails and prioritize them, right? From most urgent to, and at some point in time, again, these are natural languages, meaning they read and interpret human language, right? Some of them are getting really, really good. You'll be surprised. What it'll be able to do is like summarize email. Like, okay, I've got to, Matt is mad. Why is he mad? I don't know. Like, he
Yeah.
doesn't like that stock in his portfolio is down, whatever. Right. So prioritize my emails for the day. Okay, great. Take a first cut at responding to some of these emails, and then I can review the response. You can also develop like things like, hey, I only want to have like short responses. That way I don't have to like, read super long. But email is like the bane of most modern workers' existence. Everybody hates email. Can you help me with it?
But take that example, and I'm going to give a scenario everybody's gonna be like, that is so out there. And then I want to talk on one other aspect of this real quick, but is that take email that like they're upset and integrate it into all of your other systems so where they can then see their holdings. They can then go and look at what the performance of those holdings are over time and what changes you have made, and then provide a suggestion that this person's upset. They're talking about XYZ. It's likely because of this move that you did and this stock that's down. And here's some information on why it's down that pulls in from your own database and from public databases of giving you information. And it crafts a 2-paragraph email to allude to that. Like the power of that. The power
Yeah.
of that. And everybody says, well, then what is my job? And your job is the moat that is so big that it will not be taken over is the relationship that you have with
Yeah.
them and the EQ
1000%.
that you can provide. It's not that you're better at sending emails about whether they should do a Roth 401k or traditional 401k. Like, get over yourself. That's
Yeah,
not
for
it, right?
sure.
You are more valuable than that. You are more valuable
Well,
than
dude,
that.
that I have said that like ad nauseum on this show and other places that listen, everybody sells the same stuff. They all sell the same stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. You do not have a unique access to that. Most of the financial advisors out there are using either the same or very similar financial planning software, right, solution. So that even the financial plan that's coming out, some of the models look really the same. Some of the like, so they are choosing you because of you.
And this
They
is
know you. They
And that is exact sorry to cut you off, but that is exactly why generative AI will not put people out of the business because everybody's like, well, if everybody's using generative AI and ChatGPT to create content, then isn't it all just going to be kind of this saturated world? And I was talking to one of the co-founders of Snappy Kraken about this on our podcast recently,
Yeah.
and and I was like, and it's not, right? Because we all are doing it right now. We're all using the same financial planning softwares. And we what is differentiating us is our approach to how we use them, and then our approach to how we present them, and then the relationship and the connection that we make with our clients. So it's not putting you out of business, and it's not going to saturate and make you obsolete. It's going to make you rise above and be unique in your own way, which I think is like that's exciting. That's exciting. Some people don't like me, and
So
that's okay, but some people
that's right.
do, and that's fun.
That's right. Well, think about as an example, let's just say you want to grow your business. You want to go out and win new client relationships and grow the business, right? We talk a lot about niche type businessing. Like you want to service tech people in the tech industry. Okay, great. You could use generative AI type solutions to help inform you about what's going on in the tech industry. So basically a virtual assistant to go help you do some research on stuff. Then, as you're crafting emails and crafting web copy for your website, you could have it help you craft that web copy, right? Then, as you're meeting a new person, Matt Reiner, founder of XYZ tech firm, okay, great. Uh, let's do a little research on Matt Reiner online. Show me some data about him, his likes, his what types of movies. Is he a sci-fi nerd like me, or is he like rom-coms or whatever? Does he like to travel? If so, where? Like, give me a general like playbook on this person who's coming into my meet me in my office. Now I know a little bit more about you. You could have done that. It would have taken hours and hours and hours, right? But now we're starting to have tools where I can go sick him, go find out some stuff on this guy, help me out here. And then as we're getting into the planning process, right? Think about generative AI, like in terms of like what Google Maps is now compared to old fashioned paper maps, or when you used to go to AAA and get the triptych books that printed out, right? They would suggest stops along the way and so forth. But now, in 5 seconds, I can pull up, say, I'm going to go from here to Baton Rouge. Great. 7 hour drive. Where are we going to stop for? Which Starbucks are we going to stop at? Where are we going to get our lunch? What are we going to do? Like, I can look at those types of things in an instant, and then I can even reroute super quickly, right? We all take that for granted, but that's a very recent phenomenon. It's like 10 years old that you could do that type of stuff. Getting back to the beginning of our show, imagine what you're going to be able to do with asking these solutions. Like, okay, Matt's a client. He's talked about wanting a vacation house. I'm looking at how much money he has. I'm looking about how much money he's going to have in retirement in terms of income. He's got on his brain he wants Florida. Let's do some analysis about like, okay, what does he like about Florida? You know, the beaches, da 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 da. Does it fit with his budget? And it might come back with like, hey, you know what? Believe it or not, there's some beaches in Alabama along the we jokingly call it the redneck Riviera. Sorry, Alabama. Anyways, there's a beautiful white sand beaches. Sorry, Alabama fans. We got Georgia and SEC here, so it is
I
what
mean,
it
but
is.
I,
But
that
yeah, LSU.
the power of it, I think that the point of it is that in 10 years people will be like, Matt, you were wrong, and that's okay. Like I get it, but generative AI is going to change the way that the business works. And to your point,
Oh,
that something that
100%.
you said earlier, the way, and this is a lesson that we learned from Benjamin as well, that I think for technologies to work inside of our industry, it has to be inputted or inside of some
Yeah,
of the core technologies that we're already using. We're just not there yet to open up and add more technologies where we are because of like the integrations and the APIs. And so it has to be in the core. So if it finds its way into our CRM and you start getting all these cool new features about how to, interpret
yeah,
financial advice and identify houses in Florida that meet their criteria based on the person that they are, the age that they are, the things that they like to do, and it just populates inside of your CRM, then you're going to start using it and it's going to be powered by generative AI. And so it's going to
yeah,
find its way in there, but the more likely success is going to find its way in tools that you're already using, like it already has with Redtail and Orion.
yeah. Love it. All right. I told you I'd bring it back, the kind of the same topic. During our prep call, you had this amazing quote about innovation. And I can't remember if it was your quote or if you just stole it from somebody else. And I can't remember who you credited, but you said something to the effect of innovation happens when two ideas have sex. And I freaking love that quote. I guess I could have Googled it and said, who actually said this? Maybe it's Matt Reiner. We'll
Yeah.
credit him forever. Uh, let's get our innovation freak on here. what idea hookups are you shipping at the moment? Like, what in your brain you're like, you know what, I really want to see mashed up these two techs or these two ideas, and this is where innovation is going to go in the future.
Yeah, I can't take, credit for that quote. That's Matt Ridley out of UK. He's written a lot of good books. He's a he's just a brilliant person, but, he did a whole TEDx, and you can watch it of, innovation happens when ideas come together and have sex. And I think that it's such a great, and he talks about how like the animals that are asexual and how they kind of die off, right? And the innovation, the animals that are able to reproduce are able to continue to create and stay alive. And I think that that's the core of it. So, from my standpoint, I am very much big on generative AI. I think that I am bought into to how that impacts the client servicing model. We at our firm at Capital Investment Advisors are really big on innovation, and we've said that we have to accept that change is our norm. And our team has bought into that, and it's really incredible. And so where I get excitement is not necessarily on the specific outputs that innovation can create. It's more on how do we create more ideas around innovative idea or concepts. And so we're starting an innovation lab within our organization here shortly, and it's all about getting our team to think innovatively. I met with an organization that everybody would know their name, but I'm not going to share it from that for privacy reasons. But they are all about this concept of getting their team to untie the knot, identifying areas where we can innovate on the process, on the experience, on the output, whatever it may be, and bringing it to the forefront. And I think that for us, that is what our goal is. How do we bring more innovation? Because we have 80 employees now, or team members in our organization, and each of those team members have unique experiences, and they all interact with different technologies and different tools and different services than all any one person can. And what fires me up is how do we bring all of their lessons that they're using and combine them in a room of what did you love about that solution or that service? What did you love about that experience? What did you love about that tool? And all of those, and have a problem statement or an opportunity statement inside of our organization, and use these lessons in these outside of our industry experiences to then better our experiences in our team, in our service model, and our value to our end clients. That to me is like fires me up. And there's never been a time better than right now to be able to do that. And I think that we have opportunities to serve more clients, and serve our clients in a more unique way. And my mission has always been, no matter what I do, if you look at all of my things that I've done in my career, it's always been about how do we, I believe that every single person in this country needs to have access to a human financial advisor. I believe in the human financial advisor. I believe in the value that it provides. And I believe that we need to find a way to provide access to more people, to a human financial advisor. And whatever we're doing, I want to be able to do more of that.
I absolutely love it. I love it. And I love the fact that, you're leading with this spirit of like everyone has something valuable to share and contribute to this, right? That innovation doesn't just come from the top down, and in fact, it rarely does come from the top down. Like the CEO or the whatever, the smartest or most highly paid person in the organization isn't always the one who's innovating, right? Because very often, going back to what we said before, that person's reached a level of comfort or hey, I found the things that work. I'm going to stick with the things that are working. It's the people who are in it, in the soup, if you will, right? Or just entering the race, or like, hey, oh, there's another way of doing this. I found a shortcut or whatever. So I love the way that you're leading there. And that kind of brings me to the way of like the way we should close this here. You have a community, and I want to talk a little bit about it. It's called the Inner Circle. Uh, what's driving that community, right? So why are you like you've got your own organization? You said you have 80 team members. That's a big, vibrant, multi-billion-dollar AUM firm. What's going on with this inner circle thing? Why do you feel that you should be doing this and bringing other people into the fold and kind of sharing the intellectual wealth, if you will, with everybody?
I mean, I think that it lies in the theme of what we're doing here, right?
Yeah.
I think that community breeds innovation, and I know that our firm is going to be uber successful, and we're extremely fortunate, and the team that we have there is going to continue to grow and impact many people's lives, and I'm extremely grateful for that and that opportunity. But I also know that we're not going to serve everybody, and I think that one of my kind of core things that I've learned in my career, right? I jumped into a business my dad had founded. My brother was working there. I had major imposter syndrome of trying to figure out what is my value, and I started a technology business, and I found that was my thing, right? Technology and innovation and leadership, and that's when I started to figure out what my value was. And my biggest lesson was the failure of that business, or both those technology businesses, because now I'm bringing insights that are unique and different back into our core business. That if I hadn't done that, it would not have been the same as it is today. And I found extreme value from that because I learned from a ton of different people. I spoke with hundreds and thousands of other advisors, and they all had an impact on me and my view of the world and on the industry and on the value we can provide and where we need to go. And I think that our industry has always been close to the chest because we're worried about our secrets getting out. And what I hope that we can do with the circle is that we can build a community of individuals that are forward thinking, that want to learn from each other, that we can all push forward to be better. And if we can all be better, then we can serve more people, which goes back to my core mission of helping every
Yeah.
single person in this country have a human financial advisor. And then we can all benefit together. And the way that I built this out is it's a newsletter that is 3 times a week, and it's going to continuously evolve based on feedback, but it's all built off of mind, profession, and client experience. Right? How do we get our mindset correct and motivated to make an impact? How do we become better individuals and people? I think mindfulness and psychology is huge. And then how do we then become tactically better in our profession? Right? How do we use ChatGPT better? How do we segment better? All that type of stuff. And then can we use what's going on in the world and from industry leaders to enhance our client experience? How can we really be
Mm.
thoughtful around anecdotes and stories and lessons from outside of our industry to rethink how we serve our clients in a better way? And if we can do that weekly, we can get better. And I hope we can continue to grow it. It's a passion of mine. However we can do it, we'll do it. My core focus is always on our business, and but I think that our business, we are leaders in the space of innovation and et cetera. And I think that we've learned a lot. I've learned a lot, and there's a lot to share that can make everybody better, and it's going to make the industry better, which makes everything immensely better.
I love it. I tell you what, sounds corny, buddy, but I find it very inspirational on a couple of levels. A, the fact that you have a very giving spirit, that you're out there looking to lead and to help people that are either within your organization, help your clients, and also those out there. But the fact that you have the humbleness and the self awareness also to recognize, hey, listen, we had a failure on this whatever thing, that doesn't mean I'm a failure. It doesn't mean that like I don't have value. It means I've learned some lessons here. Let me take these lessons and not only internalize them, but like share them with others. And lastly, one of the things I really love about what you're doing with the circle and your other endeavors is when you teach, you learn, and it sounds so silly, but if you ever start to try to show somebody how to do something or just, give away a piece of information, you'll find that you learn way more during that endeavor than you did when you were actually studying and trying to learn that thing. You're like, "Oh, that's right. Like, if I had this, like, okay, let me articulate this so that Matt can understand this. Oh, now I understand it even better," right? So, excellent stuff, buddy. People can find you at mattreiner.com. We'll make sure we have that linked up. Where else are you hanging out these days? You got the podcast, so share the podcast for everybody.
Got the podcast Bridging the Gap. You can download it on your favorite podcasting app. You can find me on LinkedIn. We do a ton of fun, engaging posts on LinkedIn with valuable content there, and
Awesome.
Twitter as well. And YouTube, we have a channel with some videos and video content there as well. And you can go check out. We've got the Dr. Cole Cash series, 2 volumes of
Love it.
that book on Amazon. You can go check out that book, which is just another fun way of helping advisors see their true value.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thanks for coming on the show, buddy. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you very much for listening to and/or watching this episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. It's always fantastic to have you with us. Huge thanks to my man, Matt Reiner, for coming back on the show. And by the way, being patient for this episode to come out. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we recorded this episode months ago. And in fact, I think it was actually at the end of the summer or something. I had just seen Oppenheimer a couple of weeks before, as you heard during the body of this podcast. So that should date when this was recorded. Well, by the way, we are actually in award season, so that kind of plays, right? Oppenheimer's up for an Oscar. So there you go. It all feeds in well. See how it all works out for us. Anyways, huge props to my man, Matt. Do check out the newsletter, The Circle. Swing by and check out his LinkedIn profile and connect with him because awesome dude. You want to have him in your network. That's all I have for you today. Hope you're staying safe and do me a favor. Be nice to each other. We'll see you next time on the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast. See ya. Bye.